Alder Bennett, Alder Harrington McKinney, Alder Heck,
Here.
Alder Lemmer,
Oh, here.
Alder Wahelier,
Here.
all right, you should have quorum.
Thank you very much. We will start with the approval of the minute. Can we please have a motion for the approval of minute for the July 20th meeting?
I'll move.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's moved and seconded. Any question, comments on a motion on minutes? I do not see any hand raised. I will record as unanimous. Next is public comments. And I do believe we have Megan Sended, neither in support, not opposed, and want to speak. Megan? Could you please also, Megan, mention which agenda item you want to speak on?
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
Hi. I guess, I'm just here to speak on item number 4, an early public comment. I just wanted to, I registered in opposition, but I wanted to speak now. Sorry, didn't realize we'd get started this quickly. But I guess I wanted to raise my opposition to this item, not because I'm necessarily against tiny homes, but simply because I think the language of this, like legislative file or this text, speaks one, it does not address the fact that there are more than 10 houseless folks in our city. And so building 10 tiny homes, which for folks who want to be on that tiny homes and who want to see that happen, I think that could be great for people who are inclined to do that. But we have a larger houseless population than that. And I think that the language, particularly concerning living outside, living in parks, is a veiled threat to all of the folks who are living specifically in Rindell Park, but as well as like the Starkweather Park and other areas of the city. When we start creating these policies, while I agree that we should be looking at multiple solutions and multiple different avenues to give folks the autonomy to choose between what sort of situation is going to do to them, I don't think we should also be narrowing ourselves down so much, as well as, again, sort of closing the door to the fact that there are folks who we don't currently have the housing options or the stock, or at least not proposed in this proposal, to house everybody. So I don't want this policy to then lead to the like eviction or, use of police to again evict folks from these parks. And so I ask that the Common Council Executive Committee oppose this legislation because it doesn't address the fact that our houseless population is greater than 10 people. So that's all. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you very much, Megan. Madeline, I don't see any other public comment, early public comment, correct? All right.
No, there isn't.
Perfect. Thank you. We'll move forward with disclosures and recusal. This is an opportunity for members to disclose or recuse. If you wish, please raise your hand. I do not see any disclosure or recusal at this moment, so we will move forward with our updates. Agenda item number 2, legislative file number 6662, recycling and large item pickup. I believe Charles, you're going to present that.
Sure. As I understand, the primary interest was the changes we made to the large item collections. We'll certainly go through that. It's really a continuation of adjustments we've made to several of our curbside collections. Leaves, we made a change in the fall that went very smoothly and was well received by residents. Brush collection, we changed over the winter and into the spring, going from 10 collections, kind of a round robin fashion, down to 6, where residents can plug in their address and see dates that were coming, like a Sunday to put out brush and we collect. And then the change in large items, which we knew was going to be the heavier lift. It's similar to leaves and brush, and that you can pull up your address or you can put in a phone call and give us your address and we'll kind of give you your set out dates. But we are requiring a work order. And so the way that large items has worked in the city for as long as anyone can remember is that we would collect large items opposite recycling. And so we would send 6 large trucks out into the city for a certain area of the city, rumble around hoping to find work. And we would essentially drive every block of the city in a 2-week cycle, which meant if you're a resident or a landlord, you could put anything out of the curb at any time. In worst case, it'd be 12 or 13 days and a vehicle would be by to scoop it up. That is an extremely high level of service and very convenient for residents and landlords, to be sure. No one else in the nation does it anywhere near that. To give you, I've done some figuring, and it was costing us somewhere around $18,000 to $19,000 per week to provide that service level. And quite frankly, as we were dealing with budget impacts and hiring freezes from COVID, it's certainly an area that I had identified as an area we really needed to address. And when we came into this end of the year with 16 positions light, there were some adjustments that were kind of like it was time to try, brush being one, large items being one. So the change that we've made, still 12 collections in a year, we still have not been able to find any municipality that even offers that level of service. But we are now having residents and landlords go in, type in the address. There's one Sunday a month, they can put the large items out. We ask to put out the work order so we know where they are. That allows us to route trucks to go get the items and get those collected. And we're saving around $10,000 a week doing it that way. And there's been quite a bit of savings on staff time, which has quite frankly been needed as we've been ramping up our hiring again. So far, I would say that in most like single family residential areas, it's gone really pretty smoothly. There's always been complaints, always will be complaints, but mostly in those areas, it's going well. And we're certainly seeing a significant uptick of people using the work order system, which is really good. What the streets division has always called green areas, for no other reason than they colored their maps green when they designated these areas years and years ago. Mostly like in NRT areas. Those are areas that we have always checked about once every week to 10 days. We are continuing to check those areas every week to 10 days for large items to be put out of the curb. That's really an issue of trying to provide equitable services. Those parts of the city have just always tended to need a little more help to keep them as clean on the terraces as other parts of the city. Probably where we're seeing the biggest issue right now are high rental units, like large apartment complexes, even 4-plexes and 8-plexes, where, forever people have just, without thinking, just put it up to the curb, and they've never had to give it any more thought than maybe a 9-year-old with their laundry, right? You just put it in the hamper, and 3 days later, it's folded up on my bed and it's clean. And now we're asking people, like, you're going to have to give this a little bit of thought, be a little bit planful, because the level of service that we've all enjoyed just is too expensive anymore. And these trucks get 3 to 5 miles a gallon, right? They belch a huge amount of carbon into the air. And so the more we can keep these trucks off the roads, not only is there real dollar and cents savings, but there are real environmental, benefits to that as well. So we still have issues to work through. This is not done. We are still exploring with amongst our own capabilities and with our IT staff, the Acela work order system and what it can and can't do. So we're not done here. This isn't a finished product. We're in it about 2 months now. I've been in communication with Matt Tucker and building inspection. They are not writing fines. We are sending out letters to inform people that of the new system, so they're aware. We're not sending out fine notices or anything like that at this point. But it's been a pretty big change. Largely, believe it or not, it's gone very well. But there are some instances where there are struggles with making the change.
Thank you very much, Charles. Alder Furman, question?
Thank you, Council President. Charles, can you talk a little bit more about the communication on how residents found out about this? What the different methods are that you folks use to make sure people knew about this new system?
Sure. Let me pull up my, I made some notes here so I wouldn't forget. So we had the encyclopedia that went out in the spring. We made updates to our large item collection website in May. We put out 6 press releases during the month of May. Brian Johnson, our halftime PIO, halftime recycling coordinator, did some interviews on television and as well as the newspapers in May. We sent out information directly to the alders on May 18th and May 28th about the new system. It was talked about during the new alder information sessions. Twice in May, we also reached out to the folks who maintain the neighborhood association contact list to share large item news with them. Brian has gone out to a couple of NRTs. I went out to the Lake Edge Neighborhood Association. We've had information out at the libraries. Brian Johnson did a mayoral press conference back in May. We sent out word in May, emails to the, I think, 2,500 to 3,000 residential households that are signed up on our Recycling News email list to make sure that they were aware. And we've also put up a couple of kind of how-to videos on YouTube on how to schedule and do your large items and link that off the website. I want to say there were a couple other emails we sent out, but that's the gist of the efforts that we've made to this point.
That Recyclepedia thing you talked about, how would people have gotten that? Is that something that was sent to every resident, or is that something people would have had to have gotten at the library or online or something like that?
Yeah, there's digital versions available, but for a print version, those have typically been available through libraries. There's certain grocery stores they'll be put out at. You can pick them up at our office. People, believe it or not, call in and request them, and we will mail them to them. So there's a variety of different ways, but it's not meant to be something that we print and hand to all the 75,000 households that we.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And then dealing with people that are putting things out at periods when they're not supposed to. How is that being reported? Who's reporting that? Who's the onus on to report that? What's the system look like? I'm glad to hear people aren't necessarily being fined because they may not know about this new system, but how's that whole just reporting thing work?
So it comes in like most complaints do, Alder Furman, through a variety of channels. People will call, people will use report a problem. People will email us directly. People who, have had previous interactions with myself or Brian will send emails in directly. There's been complaints that have come into the mayor's office. People will, I think, probably complain through you all as well. So there's been a variety of ways that we have found out. We've also, we've had our trash truck drivers will see stuff set out and know that it's going to be a while until it gets collected, and they'll let a supervisor know, and we'll handle it that way as well. And that has largely been handled. So the way that will typically happen is we have a flyer that we will attach to the items. and to let the residents know, here's the information on how we're doing large items now. Here's some information on the flyer. Here's the website where you can get, more information. So does that answer your?
I guess so. I mean, but it sounds like your staff is taking proactive approaches to, leave stuff in places and let people know about it, opposed to, just waiting for things to be reported.
Yes, we're doing our very best to also take a proactive approach. But we find out, as with a lot of things, where people make a complaint. And a lot of times people are making a complaint when stuff has been out for a few days or a week. I would say the other thing that we are absolutely planning on doing, once we get through the budget, so probably in December, we're already drafting a letter that we're planning to put out in the municipal services bill as well, so people can see that for what we're going to be doing with large items next year. Just trying to find different ways to, get word out as proactively as we can. What we run into, of course, is a lot of times, people don't pay attention until they pay attention. We actually, believe it or not, 2 weeks ago had a gentleman call in and was asking if the city would provide twine, since he thought he was still required to bundle his newspaper in twine so it could be recycled. And that hasn't been a requirement for almost 20 years. So, an extreme situation there. But we knew going into this, it was going to be difficult to get people's attention until it impacted them. And we had been, prepared with pre-written statements and emails as best we could, knowing that, vast majority of people only use the service once a year, maybe once every few years. We do have a few high frequency users for sure, but it was just going to be difficult to get to everybody.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I agree with this change. I appreciate the work that you folks are doing. I think this is something that we can all learn from, how to maybe see how we can do better, because you listed a ton of different places that this was, advertised, and there's still a ton of people that don't know about it. And so I think we, collectively as a city, just need to figure out better ways to make sure that this stuff goes out. But my goodness, offering it 12 times a year is still way higher than any other municipality I've ever heard of. And so I'm glad for you to have stated that. We're still offering a fairly platinum level service. So I appreciate that update. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Alder Furman. Alder Carter.
A couple things. I think this is something that each of us alders can periodically send out on our blog. That would help get the word out. I just want to go back to Charlie, if you don't mind. You were saying that the previous service level cost us between $18,000 and $19,000 per week, and that this change of 12 collections per year is saving us $10,000. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, yes. And we're in peak season now. So those numbers will be, and during the winter, non-peak large item season will probably be half that, but it'll probably come out to a savings of somewhere between $7,000 and $9,000 a week for the year.
And then how does this affect the move in, move out in the university area that comes, I believe, every August? If I'm not incorrect. It's a level. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You're cutting in and out a little bit on my feed here. I'm not meaning to cut you off. Are you done?
Oh, I'm done. I just want to know what was the cost amount for the move in, move out August season. And how will this affect?
So the student move in, move out, we really haven't made any changes there. That's very unique, kind of week and a half, 2 week run. And I think it's hard to communicate with all of our residents on a change like this, try and do it with students. So it seemed like the best thing to do was just to leave the move in and move out process pretty well alone. So we're actually ramping up into that as we speak.
Yeah, thank you. And then my last question is, in the NRT areas, you are still perusing those areas for service for large items once per week?
Correct. So the NRT areas, we send either a supervisor to kind of scout it out, or we may send a truck through there, but we are checking once a week. So those areas would still be getting collected every one to 2 weeks, which is pretty consistent with how they've always been done.
And then finally, what changes are going to come about going forward, at least till the end of the year, with being 16 stores down? That's a pretty large number for any department.
Yeah. So again, my connection's not great. You were asking about 16 down. So we have been hiring people. The hiring freeze was lifted in January. The issue for me in streets is we typically don't start hiring until around March and April, because there's not a lot we can do training wise in January and February. Also, I hope, I don't know you all real well on this call. I used to be in parks. So when I speak of parks, please understand, I do it from a soft spot in my heart. When I would hire staff into parks, like within 2 to 3 weeks, you could have someone who could at least functionally help. They could run a mower, they could run a weed eater, they could rake a ball field, they could clean a bathroom, right? That's real work, but it is easier to pick that up. What I've learned coming over to streets for the last 3.5 years is when I hire someone in the streets to be a street machine operator, it typically takes them 2 to 3 months before they can operate a single piece of our machinery. We're talking about machinery that's $250,000 to $300,000 that, you sit in one of our blue trucks, for example, that we collect trash with. You might as well be operating the space shuttle. I mean, the amount they are dealing with while trying to navigate through our streets really is incredible. And so it takes a much longer time frame to get trained up, even once we hire them. And I think we all understand that getting people through the recruiting process and hiring process in municipal governments tends to take longer than the private sector.
Mm-hmm.
So we are still trying to get our last 3 to 4 people hired in, but we are still very much in the beginning phases with a lot of that staff that started coming in May, June, and July. So while I'm very grateful that we can start hiring the staff in, they are very green and it is going to take some time. And I will feel that this winter when we're plowing, and they've never plowed before, right? But that's the way it is. The good news is that'll be a class of hires that will hopefully be with us a long time once we get them trained up. So as they are learning and growing, we're able to plug them in and do more things and train on more things, and pop off some of our, right? Because training usually takes 2 people, right? I mean, the trainer and the trainee. So it just takes a lot of time. And so these are changes that I want to be clear. I wanted to make these changes coming in and taking a look at where we provide services and where should we be spending our treasure as a city, because there's only so much of it to go around. And this was an opportunity where it felt like it's not perfect, but I don't have staff at that time to provide services in 2021 the way our residents are accustomed to. These are changes that really need to be made anyway. Most of it has gone very well. Large items, I think predictably has been a little bumpier, but we're going to get there.
Yes. And finally, is there any changes to the recycling frequency?
It cut out again. Was the question, is there any changes to recycling frequency?
Yes.
There are no changes to recycling frequency. I
Okay.
certainly couldn't see doing that.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Alder Carter. Alder Foster.
Thank you, President Boss, and thanks, Charlie. I really appreciate you bringing a lot of these kind of efficiency concepts forward, and we're all facing these really tough budget challenges every year, so this is really helpful. In terms of the communication, I guess one thing to mostly as a comment, I guess for you, I think there was good communication about the change in protocol in terms of needing to submit a work request. I think what I've run into with my constituents is that they were very much not aware in the change in the frequency of the pickups, and that also took me by surprise. So I don't know if that was actually included and we all just missed it, but I think what I've been hearing most from folks is not a concern that they didn't know there was a change or a concern that they need to submit a work order for it. But when they go and do that they're finding out that it is often 3 or 4 weeks into the future. So that's really the biggest concern I've heard. And then maybe second to that and related is that there's no easy way for them to find out what that schedule is until they put in the work order. And so I think a lot of folks are feeling they're getting burned by putting stuff out there, putting in the work order, and then finding out that it's really far out. I think the other thing that I've heard from folks is moving. So, I think it's great that for downtown and student areas, most of that's happening, during this month. But for other areas of the city, like out here, somebody moves out of their home, I think it's really impractical for them to hold on to it for 3 or 4 weeks. There's a sort of a week where they're doing the work and the stuff's going to end up on the curb either way. So I guess my questions are, is there an opportunity to continue with the system as is in terms of the work orders? But number one, what would it take to have a little bit higher more frequent turnaround on those requests? And what is the opportunity to do better in terms of publishing planned pickup dates so that people can schedule if they're cleaning out their garage, et cetera?
Sure. Yeah. So let me take the second piece of that first. So the pickup dates, part of what caught us there was just being a new system and not having really been on IT's work plan, trying to work with them through this past winter to get any kind of a work order system set up and any kind of a system set up where residents can go in and check what their dates were was understandably taxing for them. They worked very hard with us to do that. But what that prevented us from doing is while we knew in December, January that we wanted to put this, or we're going to need to put this system in place, we didn't know for sure when we were going to be able to start it because IT had to get their part done. And we wanted to have at least a month of communication with our residents before we got it started. So that really prevented us from being able to publish a calendar in advance. We don't have that issue for next year. So our intention is, as we get into the fall, probably in November, is to put out a pickup calendar in the Recyclopedia and online and emailed out what those pickup dates will be for the entire year coming up. So I think that will help in the future where people can know what are my dates. Secondly, as far as move outs, it is not our intention ever that large items are going to sit on the curb for 3 and 4 weeks. That's not what anybody wants. As we've tried to explain, and it's difficult to explain nuance to a large audience, but if someone is moving out and they call and I'm moving out, here's my date, we're going to put stuff on the curb, we are going to go get it. Now if it's a week, then we may, until their area came around, we'll probably leave it for the week. But if it's going to be an extended period of time, our intention would be 100% to go get it, not to leave it on the curb. And so that's something where, again, we're going to have to figure out how to communicate that better for where we have people moving out a week after we've already collected in that area and they didn't know about the new system, especially in the next year or two while it's all new. At some point in the future, it will be well understood that this is the process, but for now it's all new. but it is never our intention. And to be clear, Alder Foster and all of you, like if somebody sees something that's been on the curb for a while, anybody can call in and let us know or put in a work order for that address if their concern is that hasn't been done or we don't know about it. If something has been sitting on the curb for a couple of weeks, it can only be because we didn't know. That can be the only reason is that we didn't know. So that's certainly one of the areas we're going to have to figure out how to communicate that better, that our intention, if you're moving out, is let us know. But the vast majority of what we get on large items, of course, is I bought a new couch. I need to get rid of my old one. Or I'm cleaning out my garage and I'd like to throw some of this stuff out to the curb. And what we're simply asking there is, can you do it based on this schedule? Can the stuff sit in your garage for another week or two until we're coming through? It's not meant to be something where somebody out puts a bunch of stuff at the curb and everybody's got to look at it for 3 or 4 weeks while it gets rained on and thrown across the street or whatever.
Yeah, thank you. That's helpful. I'm glad that's kind of how you're thinking about it as well. And I mean, I residents are all different, but most of the ones that I've been hearing from and just sort of knowing my constituents, I mean, I think if we are able to explain that and explain the benefits of why we're not coming around as frequently and really setting that expectation, that ask with a clear calendar, right? Here are the dates. Please count on these. Please use these. Fill out this quick form to let us know so we can come by and grab it. But then also be clear about, if for some reason you're moving out and you really, the dates won't work, please contact us in this route and we'll make arrangements with you. I think that would go a long way because I know a lot of those that have contacted me. I mean, they don't want to just leave it on the curb and walk away. Their upset is coming from not wanting to break the rules and wanting to work within the system and feeling. So I think that would be really great if we can work towards kind of that dual approach of here's your standard stuff. Please hold on to things until these dates. Let us know. And for extraordinary times, there's a different mechanism and we'll try and accommodate it. I think that would really help a lot.
Yeah, we will. Yeah. And that's in the kind of pre-literature we're drafting up to go out in that full services bill. We're working up drafting from the website and all that because that has absolutely been an issue and that's a fair critique to be sure.
And I would say let's not be shy about sharing the savings that we're realizing. I mean, that was the kind of tone that came in some of the comments was, what the hell is this? Cutting my services, my taxes are still going up. That's a deeper conversation, but I think people will understand if we're able to save taxpayer money by everybody holding on to their stuff a little bit longer and using this system. I think that's good to make sure we're really clear about in there as well. Thank you.
It's Alder Foster. Alder Bennett.
Hi. I was hoping that you could speak more to how you're going to respond to those that aren't in compliance. And obviously I'm speaking from a point of view of being in the downtown campus district area, where, I have a personal experience where my apartment building, last year, they didn't provide any recycling bins at all so they closed their garbage chutes and recycling bins on each floor because it would clog up the area and instead just provided 2 large green dumpsters outside where all the recycling, all the garbage was mixed in. And because I'm still on my email list for my old apartment, they literally just emailed all residents that they're going to be doing the same thing this year. And that's super concerning because I've heard from other young people in this area that that's a main concern of theirs, that recycling is very, very limited. So I was hoping that you could speak to that and I'd be happy to talk about, happy to speak with you one-on-one sometime about different apartment buildings, but that's a Herculean task to know every apartment that complex that isn't complying with garbage and recycling standards.
Sure. Well, So we do occasionally come across usually apartment complexes that are not recycling, and we work with building inspection to get them to comply, or they are fined. So if you are aware and are willing to share any apartment complexes you are aware of that are not recycling, I would be happy to work with building inspection and work to bring them into compliance. The expectation, there's an ordinance that requires that they recycle. My suspicion would be it wasn't that long ago that recycling got really, 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 really expensive. And so they found it expedient to just dump it in the trash. But that's not allowed, even when recycling is inconvenient. So happy to talk to you one-on-one on that. You're welcome to forward me an email if you have addresses I should check into, whatever works for you there. But they absolutely would need to comply is for recycling. As far as large items, if that was also a question, I wouldn't envision that we would start looking into more compliance until at least sometime next year. I want to give people time to do this. This is a big change, a big service level change, and I'm not in a rush to start getting people fined. Quite honestly, we have some people that are vocally upset about that, but largely it's going pretty well. We've got some issues we need to figure out, particularly with larger apartments. Mostly ones that we don't even collect trash and recycling from, but for some reason we've always done large items. That's maybe a question we need to explore in the future. Should we be doing large items for these places they're so big we don't do trash and recycling? That's maybe not a conversation for today, but maybe one in the future. But I wouldn't envision getting into some compliance action until next year. I want to make sure we have time to get the word out and be fair to our residents. And even then, it would be limited to multi-time offenders, not the first time.
Okay. Thank you.
Elder Bennett?
Yeah, I guess we could connect one-on-one as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Very much. Any further question? I do not see any hand raised. Thank you very much, Charles. Appreciate that.
Thank you all.
Thanks. Moving forward with special item, agenda item number 3, legislative file number 66694, proposed 2022 Common Council meeting dates. Madeline?
Well, yes, as you can see from the attachment, these are the proposed meeting dates for the Common Council for next year. I noted this is under the assumption that we will be meeting in person. Obviously, that may change in the future. So noting CCB 201 or MMB can just be considered placeholders depending on what happens next year. And a few of the dates were moved around due to the spring primary election, the spring election, Eid, Yom Kippur, and the general election. But if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you. Questions, Alder Carter?
I know this year that we did not meet after July 4th. So can you tell me why we're meeting on July 5th this year? I mean, next year, obviously, not this year.
July 5th for this year was considered the observed holiday. I do not believe that that will be the same for next year. I believe 4th of July is on a weekend. Let me double check that.
July, I believe, was on Sunday this year.
Yes, so we had July 5th off as an observed holiday for the city of Madison. Next year, the 4th of July is on a Monday. So we would already have that Monday off. So we would not be taking Tuesday off as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Alder Carter. Alder Foster.
Thank you. I'm pretty sure we have a list of major religious holidays that we seek to avoid scheduling meetings on. But I feel like I might have heard this year that there was one a more kind of major. I think it was maybe a Muslim holiday that there was some question or concern about. Who manages that list of sort of holidays that we seek to avoid, and do we review that periodically to make sure that we've got those dates agreed upon?
I know that the clerk's office manages a list of observed holidays, but a lot of their other scheduling is done around when the Common Council will be meeting. I'm unaware of whether you review that periodically, but I can always follow up with them to find out.
Okay, yeah, I don't remember doing that since I've been on council, and it might be worthwhile to just at least get in front of us for informational purposes, if not an actual review in case there are any discrepancies that people want to bring forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder Foster. Alder Bahele.
Thank you, President Abbas, and thanks Alder Foster for bringing up this. I agree with Alder Foster that we have to periodically update some of the religious holidays, particularly the Jewish and the Muslim. This year, we had a council meeting, one of the major religious holidays, and it was very conflicting whether I should attend the meeting or should celebrate with my family. So I think it will be, helpful to accommodate and see how we can be able to make sure that those dates are not put into the calendar for the council meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder Bahele. Alder Carter.
Yes, I'm just wondering if we should send some dates of the religious holidays that we observe. I don't think the clerk's office will know every holiday. And I think that part of our collaboration on this calendar would be to submit our religious holidays. And then can we have the clerk send out a list after we do that, a list of all of those holidays that they have on their, that they manage?
I can certainly follow up with the clerk's office and ask them about their list of holidays.
Thank you, Alder Carter. Any further comments? I do not see any hand raised, so thank you, Madeline. Next is agenda item number 4, file number 65917, creating alternative emergency shelter. We do have public comment. Just 1 second. Benji Gomez in opposition and want to speak from Gorham Street. Benji.
Yeah, I just want to say that this goes against the wills and desires of folks living at Rindal. Again, as people have to understand that uprooting people and moving them away from the only semblance of home that they have is traumatic. And so these are groups of people who are committing to living in this park because it is the only safe space that they have experienced in our entire city. This resolution is completely tone deaf to that. It completely erases this legacy of trauma of living on our streets. And so I ask this body to say no to this resolution. We need to be able to zone parts of our city for this style of living and to be able to provide them with the necessary resources that they need to be able to thrive so that they can move out of this trauma. Right now, what we are doing is we are criminalizing homelessness. We are criminalizing living on our streets, and it is not getting us anywhere. It is continuing to waste city dollar and, frankly, continuing to support this system of harm that has always existed in the city. So no, I ask this body to oppose this, and I yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Benji. Patricia O'Day is in support and wish not to speak from morning Mistway. So these are our public registrant. Can we have a question, please? All right.
Thank you, President Abbas. Taking the lead of the Joint City-County Homeless Issues Committee, who recommended that this be placed on file, that's also my motion.
Right. Can we have a second? Alder Carter, is there second?
I am not seconding this. I think it should be placed on file. Prejudice. There are, well, I'll wait for discussion. I'm sorry.
We have a motion placed on file. Can we have a second? Alder Lemmer, is that second? Thank you. Alder Carter, would you please go ahead.
Thank you. I think it should be placed on file without prejudice. I think that when we look at homelessness, houselessness, that we have to also realize not just what's happening in Rendell Park, but options for the many of the folks that find themselves in this situation. I think that we have to look beyond Rendell Park and beyond necessarily moving those individuals, but also providing housing if they chose to live in another tiny house community.
Thank you, Alder Carter. Alder Haverson.
Thank you, President Abbas. I just was going to speak to this resolution. So as you all know, we have ended up in the space that we're at after many, many years and decades even of lack of action to assist those that are experiencing homelessness. And this is a resolution that is putting solutions out there as alternative. Now, as the title states, this is an alternative emergency sheltering solution. The idea, the concept behind it is to augment our current emergency sheltering options. I've spoken to many individuals who are unable to use the existing sheltering options for a variety of reasons. Could be they have a partner. It could be they have an animal. It could be they have anxiety issues. There's a number of reasons. And this really was focused to give an extension towards those individuals that would help onboard them into our service providers that leads them towards long-term housing. That I think if we're looking to end homelessness, we're looking to get people on a path towards long-term housing. So just to be clear that this is a resolution that was established to extend our current emergency sheltering. And it goes through committee, in my opinion, so that it can be refined. Ideas can be bantered around. Gets the conversation started. That's what this is, to get a conversation started. And, to have it come back here or even to the council, the recommendation being placed on file without some even, options to change them, make it better, any of those, it's disappointing to say the least. So I just would think that this deserves conversation and we need to take action. We can't sit around and continue to allow what's happened to continue to happen. And I believe that this council has the will to do that. So that's all I want to say. Thanks, President Abbas.
Thank you, Alder Haverson. Alder Figueroa.
Thank you. I agree. We should definitely put these resolution on file. I don't, the idea that nothing is being done is just beyond my understanding of the process. We have a group of people at the city, on the city staff, from every single area, from the housing, from zoning, from the attorney's office. I mean, we have so many people from parks. We have so many people working on the Randall issue and on the issues that are impacting our houseless communities. There's so many people whose job needs to be elevated instead of being continuously being put down, like they're not working hard on this issue. Just because they're not constantly in front of the news or in front of the cameras, just telling people step by step what they're doing or what they're working on, doesn't mean that they're not working on, doesn't mean that they're not losing sleep over these issues, doesn't mean that they don't care. This resolution, all it does is just create a distraction for the people that are already working on this particular issue. So just the idea that we are not somehow leading the charge to solve these issues, it really, I just don't understand where it's coming from. So if that's the sentiment, if anyone on this council feels that nothing is being done, perhaps you should look inward and see why is it that you feel that way. Because all you have to do is pick up the phone and discuss with staff and get an input from them on where they are and what they need from us in order to continue their work. So I don't see the point of a resolution that is telling staff what they're already doing. They're already working on these solutions. They're already working on, they already understand the issue. This is not their first rodeo. So I will finish with a sentiment of great appreciation for the work that has been done so far. And last night we had an update from staff on regards to where we are with Randall. And I personally see the light at the end of the tunnel. So hopefully we can just put this resolution to rest and really be talking about the things that matter. How are we going to help these people once we get them on shelter? What are the services that they need? Where are we going to get the money to provide, to support the operational budget of whatever services we provide? Those are the important conversations we should be having. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder, for your call. Perhaps I would like to channel this discussion to staff. Jim, I have a question for you. Just for clarity of people who are listening, perhaps it's good if we can get a big update about what's happening regarding emergency arrangement or what city plan is. So if you can give us a brief update, what staff is doing. So it will be really beneficial for all of us. Thanks.
Thank you, Alder Abbas. I'm happy to do that. And I'm not going to spend time today on work that is certainly related to this, that you all know is underway with an ultimate goal of developing permanent congregate shelter facilities, both for single men and also for families with children and single women. I'll focus just on the immediate issue of supporting persons in our community who are experiencing homelessness and who are unsheltered. In that, we are proceeding along a dual path, identifying alternative locations that do not involve city parks. One of which would involve city-owned property because we have more timely access to it, and one that would propose the use of a privately owned property, which would require its acquisition by the city. And just as we're pursuing an alternative involving a city-owned property because it can happen more quickly, the private property that will need to be acquired is going to take a bit longer. You've learned through the process to acquire a shelter property that it is a fairly structured and lengthy process. So we're pursuing down both paths. We're doing so in each case with the understanding that arrangements that would be set up would need to comply with state campground licensure requirements. And so we're working to assemble cost estimates for a number of different scenarios that would involve bringing potable water to these sites, that would involve bringing bathroom facilities to these sites, not portable toilets, but bathroom structures as the campground regulations call for. We're exploring what it would take to bring electricity to these sites. So that's the path we're proceeding down. We're also looking into and are collecting information that would be useful in pursuing some kind of structures other than tents. So tiny house-like structures. And we're in conversations with a number of local service providers who we are hoping will partner with us to provide some level of staff support at these different locations. We are of the mind that they need to be structured in terms of their size and looking to support a couple of locations that each of which could provide accommodations for 25 to 30 campers. And then lastly, there is work that's underway that would address some of the zoning ordinances and the need to change those to accommodate either one of these approaches. So those things are all happening as we speak. We've made a fair amount of progress. The linchpin, as it has been from the start, is finding suitable locations. We believe that we've got two that can work, and we're proceeding to develop those. And I think Alder Figueroa Cole and I appreciate your comments. I think that was the update that the Homeless Issues Committee heard last night, though I was not able to attend that meeting.
Thank you very much, Jim. I appreciate that. And just on a small note, might be you can verify that it's my understanding during August 9th, Finance Committee will possibly have closed session to discuss about location and purchase of the shelter as well.
Yes, Alder Abbas, I do think that it is our intent to be able to discuss potential locations, primarily for permanent shelter sites, but there is, I think, some interest in getting feedback from Finance Committee members about possible locations for encampment sites as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that for verifying that. Thank you for all the work and update. Alder Bennett.
Hi. So I my connection dropped out for a bit. Are we doing discussion or are we doing questions for staff? Because it kind of got mixed up.
Well, why not we do question for the staff first? If we talk about process, then we can go in comments.
Okay. So I suppose I would like to ask Jim. Also, thank you for the update. You're awesome. I think something that, well, we discussed this multiple times. Something that like gets confused is like tiny homes being identified as like a one-size-fit-all solution, especially in the case of Rindall Park. And I was hoping, could you speak to like the tiny home process and why it may or may not be like the best fit, and why we need to have other options available for folks.
Yes, Alder Bennett, if I understand your question, I think what you're getting at, really a couple of things. First, that just like congregate shelter facilities are not are not something that some people experiencing homelessness are comfortable with and willing or able to take advantage of. In the same way, the tiny house village model that Occupy Madison has developed here in Madison serves a different population, but it might also not be the answer for everybody. It's also the case if you talk to the folks from Occupy Madison that a tiny house village is more than just setting up tiny houses, that there is community building, community organization that's really important to the success of a village like the two that Occupy has already established. So we know that if we proceed down that path with Occupy Madison or anybody else that might be interested in pursuing that kind of model, it's going to take some time. And so there is some thought that temporary encampments could serve as a transition to a tiny house village model. I think you know that there is $2 million that the mayor and the council has committed from American Rescue Plan funds to support unsheltered solutions, looking both to a more permanent tiny house village arrangement and also to an interim, what I'll characterize as an interim or a transitional encampment arrangement. And so we're really, in the work that we're doing, we're pursuing both of those, both putting in place the services and the infrastructure that would be needed, again, to comply with campground regulations, and that would serve and support temporary arrangements, and envisioning in at least one case, one of the two properties, a transition from that kind of an arrangement into a more permanent tiny house model. So that's part and parcel of the thinking and the planning that's underway currently with staff. And again, we're actively engaged in conversations with service providers that might be interested in partnering with us in both respects. I hope that's responsive to your question, Alder Bennett.
It is. Thank you so much. I also wanted to ask, I know with conversations with Occupy Madison, it takes quite a long time to establish a tiny house village, just with licensing, zoning, etc. Could you remind me of the amount of time? I think it was over 6 months, or was it a bit longer than that?
Well, I don't have command of the specifics, Alder Bennett. I do know that there was quite a bit of work done with Occupy Madison and city staff, including city planning and building inspection staff, to make that happen more quickly. And yet, I think that it was probably all of 6 months, and a lot of that time, even as work was being done to accommodate the location. I'm speaking now especially of the larger second village site, to pave the way to acquire that property and to change the zoning to make it work, and to work within the building code structure. Even as that was all going on, Occupy was working with potential residents of that building and doing what they do to begin to develop that sense of community and organizing around those folks who ultimately took up residence in that village. So I think it was all of 6 months and perhaps even longer.
Thank you so much. Well, I guess I'll leave my comments for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Bennett. Any further questions for Jim, Alder Lammer?
Thank you. Jim has answered 99.9% of my questions. I guess I'm not completely clear on how what's in front of us and it intersects or complements with the efforts that are going on with community development, with working on identifying and organizing a encampment location and a tiny house location and getting all of these things organized. How does what's in front of us fit with that, or is it just a completely separate thing? I guess if that question makes sense.
Yeah, it does, Alder Lemmer. And I really see in this resolution kind of a foundation of what we're doing. So Alder Halverson's resolution looks to determine or identify a location within the city that can accommodate up to 10 tiny houses. We're actually of the mind that we need at least 2 of them. The scale of Alder Halverson's initial proposal is considerably smaller than what we're looking for. I mentioned earlier, we think 25 to 30 sites at a particular location is workable. So ours is a bit larger in scale. Like this resolution, city staff are working at, and I think that there are some resolutions being introduced tonight that deal with ordinance changes that are impacted and would need to be updated. We are, as I mentioned, we're in conversation with a number of service providers who would be, this uses the term manage of this village. Different terminology, but we're looking for service organizations to support and staff the arrangements, the encampment sites or village sites that we're looking at. So there's a lot in this resolution that is part of the work that we're doing. So certainly it's in the same, it's moving in the same direction as what we're doing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alder Lammer. Alder Benford.
Thank you, President Abbas. I believe Alder Carter had her hand up before me if you didn't see that.
Alder Carter, do you want to go?
Yeah, I got kicked out, so I had to jump back in. So I missed Alder Lemmer's question, but hopefully I'm not repeating it. Jim, can you tell me with the 2 locations that you're working on, the folks who would go to these locations, you did mention transitional into tiny houses or permanent apartments or housing first, et cetera, but it's not just specifically only exclusively for the individuals at Rendell Park, correct?
That's correct, Alder Carter, and yet I think part and parcel of this effort is a desire to dramatically reduce the footprint of the encampment at Rendell Park, and ultimately to bring that to an end. because that park right now is that location is just not set up for a longer term use as an encampment. It's not in compliance with the regulations that I mentioned, and so this work is happening in large part to find an alternative to that location, but it's certainly not confined to folks who are there now.
Okay. And this resolution it's not prohibiting the city staff from doing exactly what they are already doing. Am I correct on that?
Alder Carter, other than the limitation, and I don't know how important this is to the resolution, but the limitation of these locations to 10 tiny houses, and I thought that I had seen, and maybe it isn't this resolution, maybe it's the other one. Oh, there it is. Oh wait, no. I thought that there was a time limitation that would be a little bit more limiting, but I might be thinking of Alder Halverson's other resolution. So other than limiting this to up to 10 tiny houses, which is smaller than the scale that we're looking at, there isn't anything here that's really, preventing us from proceeding as we are.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Alder Carter. Alder Benford.
Thank you, President Abbas. And Mr. O'Keefe, I really want to thank you and your staff. As you described, you're working on this in multi-layers, and it's just not one issue. It's not just the encampments. It's not the purpose-built dedicated shelter. It's not the tiny home villages. You're all working on so many things, and that's what it's going to take. And I've said it before, and it sounds kind of redundant, but no municipality has figured this out. So I just wanted to pause and thank you and your staff across many departments that have been working on this. So the question I have for you, and I appreciate what Alder Halverson said, that this sparks conversation, and I certainly appreciate what Alder Figueroa Cole said, that these conversations have been going on for decades, and I've been doing this work for over 35 years now, and folks, there's been a need for this for many, many years. So my question to you, Mr. O'Keefe, is that as you're tackling this issue, these many issues on a multi-pronged approach, what can we do as alders? Because ultimately, I know things are going to come up at council meetings. There's going to be resolutions. So what I'm saying is, and I'm not trying to dismiss Alder Halverson's resolution, but the City County Homeless Committee recommended putting it on file. Other folks, we kicked it back from the council that now's not the time to be, I guess, making things complicated, in the sense you all have a clear direction and you're working on many levels. So we don't need to muddy the waters with additional attempts. I think it's great to raise the level of conversation, and I really appreciate that something has to be done, because personally, I'm worried more about what happens this next winter. I worry more, can we build 100 huts or something? Can we alleviate suffering? Can we alleviate people being in parks? Can we take the pressure off the fleet services building? So what can we do, Mr. O'Keefe, as policymakers, not to throw a wrench? There's an old saying around my circle, we don't want to block your shot. And that's what I feel like this resolution is kind of doing, is blocking your shot. You're already doing the work. What advice? And that's $1 million question, but we're all here. We're alders, and what can we do to support your efforts? Thank you, President Abbas. I'll just wait and listen.
So, Alder Benford, I would say first that though it may not always seem like it, we always welcome and appreciate input from policymakers as we proceed down the various paths that we pursue. But I think maybe most importantly is to understand, as you said early on, understand that there is no single solution to this. And the fact that a solution might not be the solution is important for you all to keep in mind, to give us the flexibility to pursue multiple responses. I think that would be the, my plea to you and your colleagues on the council, and frankly, others in the community, that if this was easy, it would have been done long ago. I don't know that anybody else has solved this problem, so we're doing our best. I know it's often hard to ask for patience as this work plays out over a prolonged period of time, but I'd ask people to acknowledge that a lack of progress at any point in time doesn't reflect a lack of effort. And we are, as Alder Figueroa Cole said, we are hard at this. Many of us have devoted an awful lot of time, and I think we are getting closer to a solution or to several solutions, and we're going to keep at it.
Thank you, Jim. Before I go to Alder Figueroa Cole, IT, Tanya is here, or Stefan. What is our cutoff time?
Our cutoff time is 6:15.
All right. Thank you. Alder Figueroa Cole, please go ahead.
Hey, Jim, I hate to put you on the spot and you may not know the answer to this question, but just maybe if you can provide an idea, that would be great. So I get the sentiment that this resolution perhaps doesn't stop you from doing the work that you're doing right now. I totally understand that. But how many hours have you and your staff have to dedicate to sit through these meetings, through all these committees, to the city council, to discuss these type of resolutions when you are already doing the work? And in general, I'm talking about this resolution plus all the various resolutions that have come down the pipe to address the issues that you're already working on. How many hours have your staff put on sitting here with us instead of dedicating that time to either the work that needs to be done or to taking time off so you can actually refresh your mind and have your state of mind in a good place to continue to help and the people that need it the most?
Well, Alder, I couldn't begin to try to answer that question. I can tell you that nothing that we're doing right now is getting more attention than this. And you hear often from me and from my colleague Lynette Rhodes, but there are many others that we're working with within city government and without. Certainly with our colleagues at the county level and with a good number of service providers. I couldn't begin to make an estimate of the number of hours that we put in, but it is many.
Yeah, so I mean, wouldn't you say again? I'm not saying that. I understand that the resolution may not impair you, or there may be a thinking that the resolution doesn't impact you. But in my opinion, it does impact you. It has you here running from committee to committee, answering the same questions and addressing issues that you're already working on. And I think the time that the city staff has is extremely valuable. Everybody is working to their limits. Many areas are short-staffed. And we as a council, when Brian was asking what can we do to help staff do their job better, I think one of those things that we can do is really organize ourselves in a way more cohesive and really avoiding creating resolutions for things that the work is already being done. It really is that simple, in my opinion. Thank you again, Jim, for your hard work and your team's work on this particular situation.
So, Alder, if I can just, I know that you're not really asking a question there, but I just want to say that So it is, we do spend a lot of time with proposals like this and others like it at different legislative committee meetings. I'm painfully aware that despite the work that I know that we're doing, that a lot of that information is not getting out to members of the public, and in many cases to policymakers that aren't engaged in this at the level that some of you are. And so if nothing else, this provides an opportunity to share information, to talk about some of the things that we're doing and to answer some of those questions. So as time consuming as it is, I do think that there's some value in that. And so we're happy to make ourselves available and provide that.
Thank you, Jim. I mean, always finding a silver lining on things, and I really appreciate that. And I mean, and that can be accomplished by requesting a staff, an update like we do all the time. So there's really multiple ways on accomplishing that. So again, thank you. Thank you for all the work you guys do. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Alder.
Thank you. Alder Foster.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to raise one point that came up in previous discussion, and I guess partly to speak to Alder Benford's question of, what can we do? So maybe just to echo what Alder Figueroa Cole said, some of us have been working really closely with staff for quite a while now, and just, deep appreciation to Jim and your team, always accommodating, always finding the time. But a number of us have been working really in a very dedicated way on this for quite some time. And one of the things that's called for in this resolution says to determine what ordinances may be impacted and therefore need to be updated. So Alder Heck and I are introducing from the floor tonight 3 zoning changes that were identified by our attorney's office as problematic in order to move forward with alternatives to Rindell. And so with those 3 proposals, we should actually have the land use and zoning framework to be able to move forward with some of the other things that Jim was speaking about tonight. So I would encourage you all to take a look at those, really review them. If you have any suggestions for changes, bring those forward as it goes through the committee process. But that also, I just wanted to call out, that is, has been underway for the last several months. And we're really excited to be able to move that forward as well, since it's a critical piece of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Foster. Alder Carter.
Yes, I will be very quick with this. There are 20 of us, not 15, not 10, and not 5. There are 20 of us. And even though some of the alders are at the epicenter with staff, some of the alders are not. And so I propose, if Jim and Lynette are willing to come to the CCEC meeting and letting all of us know what's going on. I think that as policymakers, we make resolutions. And if you don't want us to make resolutions, then quite frankly, a city manager can manage the city and we won't need alders at all. This is a very explosive topic. It's a very emotional topic. There's a lot of people working on this. There's a lot of people who are interested in what's happening, not just at Rundle Park, but with the homeless, houseless individuals, families, women, etc. In order for us to have the compassion that the few have, the insiders hold, we all have to know what's going on, not just 1 or 2 people. And I suggest that we have someone come to our CCE meetings on a regular basis to keep us informed. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder Carter. Any further comment before we take a vote? Alder Bennett.
Yes, I have comments. Sorry, trying to get my thoughts together. So, I think I'll try not to be repetitive or redundant here. There are some things that I take issue with this resolution. First of which being like no individual should be left to living outdoors, which of course I agree with. I think we all can agree on that. I think that also comes with an after statement that like people are being left outdoors. It's kind of like the city saying that homelessness is a human rights issue. We know that, but there are still people that don't have homes in Madison. So I think we really need to be mindful of like those statements that we're making and like what it means to folks that are living outdoors. And as for us discussing this at committees at CCEC, I feel as though this resolution should have been put city county homelessness issues should have been placed as the lead committee in the first place. And another alder shouldn't have had to do that. Because if we want this to go through the committee process, then we need to be respecting the committees that work on houselessness issues. And clearly this does affect that population. Another thing that I take issue with this is that this resolution calls to find tiny homes for 10 people. And if we want to be addressing the issue where people are being left outdoors, one, there's more than 10 people outdoors. And who's gonna be deciding who those 10 people that can be staying in this Hope Village? Because Occupy Madison already has over 100 people on their waiting list. So the reason why I asked Jim about the difference between tiny homes and like what that means for our city is I think we keep getting caught up in this thought process that tiny homes work and that's a great solution, but it's not a one size fits all solution. And we need to be providing everything so that everyone can get long-term housing. So, like Jim said, we need looking at encampments. That is a path to going to homeless shelters. That is a path to going to tiny homes. That's a path to getting long-term housing. And everyone has their own unique path to get there. And us picking and choosing which 10 people can get this tiny home leaves out a multitude of people that will still be experiencing houselessness in Madison. And lastly, we've been working on this solution for a very long time. I'm going to be redundant there, and I'd like to share in other folks' sentiments and taking a pause and just to appreciate staff. A lot of us are new, and like I've gained a deep, deep appreciation for what you do and how much work you put into this and how available you are to help us with this. For folks that weren't privy to the City County Homelessness Issues Committee last night that want to see this path forward for the Rindell Park situation, I encourage you to rewatch the recording of that meeting, as it was very informative to how much work that staff has put into this issue and what this path forward is looking like so far. At the end of the day, I think that we need to respect what staff has been doing. I think that the resolution takes away from that, as they're kind of already finding these solutions. So let's not divide our staff time, and let's just keep moving forward with what we're doing. We're so close to like actually getting somewhere on this. So let's do that. Let's focus on that.
Thank you, Alder Bennett. Just as a reminder, we have 15 minutes
Hello.
left. Alder Carter, I'm gonna mute you. Here we go. Alder McKinney.
Okay, I guess I'm struggling because when Jim talked about he and Lynette and his staff had been on this journey for a long time, and even before I became an alder, they were around the table working very hard. I guess where I'm really uncomfortable is where I hear that alders may be blocking the forward work of staff. And that concerns me because it's selective in terms of when the statement is made by alders blocking the forward progress of issues that come before us. Collaboration, I am 200% sure that the work that Lynette's doing and the work that Jim's doing and the work that his team is doing is a collaborative approach is the best. And so I don't see Jim saying, does not want the to work together with alders. I didn't hear him saying that. I heard him saying in his most diplomatic way is that there is no one approach. There is conversation going on, and he doesn't want to exclude people in the conversation. Whenever the tendency to, exclude people in the conversation, I get very upset because it says there's an inside job going on. And Alder Carter said that there are 20 alders. I heard one alder says that, preparation for success. And sometimes, we don't allow the opportunity for us to grow and learn and have opportunities for success. I'm glad that the two alders are working on amendments that will bring closure and some kind of clarity in terms of zoning. But what about including other alders that are not at the table? Alders that will be, my time as an alder is fast coming to an end. But what about preparing those alders and bringing them in to the conversation so when they step out on the platform, you are helping them, educating them for being successful. I mean, it's not an inside job where one or two alders get an opportunity to do all the work. And when that alder said is that educate and prepare others for success, we need to begin to look at that. And so when the alder of that district, he's been beat up pretty bad, but that doesn't mean that he has not spent endless hours toiling over this issue as well. And to say that he hasn't or suggest that he has not been doing that disturbs me because he has been doing that. And so in summary, I'm just saying, let's be careful. It is 20 alders who are working to make Madison better and who are concerned about homeless people, who are concerned. And there is no one way or not one solution, but coming together and working. I'm glad that this rich discussion has happened because it needs to happen and it needs to happen more. And so I am wondering, and I do apologize, but it does concern me when the assumption is made that because someone thinks differently, the workability is somehow damaged. And alders are insulted, and the sense of they don't care. I just can't go along with that. And so I just want to make sure that I just put that out there. And Jim, thank you for the work that you've done, but also Alder Herberson, thank you for the work and caring that you have done as well.
Thank you, Alder McKinney. Alder Heck.
Thank you, President Abbas. I guess I appreciate Alder McKinney's remarks. I didn't hear those sentiments expressed. I don't think any of us doubt that Alder Halverson isn't working his tail off trying to figure out this complicated problem. And I hope we can all work together. But I would also remind all of us that we can go to committee meetings that we're not, if we're not on that committee. We can go to the City County Homeless Issues Committee and act as members almost of those bodies and participate. There's just not enough time in the day for us to sit on every committee and get an update of every single issue. So I encourage folks to do that. I also have share many of the sentiments that were expressed here, and I do think we should all work together, and we are, as we have been. And that I do think that this particular resolution is a well-meaning resolution, but it doesn't really accomplish much. There are a lot of people, staff and alders working on this, and we should continue to do so. I'd call the question, but I see that President Abbas has his hands up, so I'll yield.
Thank you, Alder Heck. I was going to say actually similar things what you said, but you cover most of the points. I think so collaboration is a key, and I will encourage all of us, and I will send an email to all alders as well about Finance Committee meeting, where we're going to look into shelter location and get feedback from the Finance Committee as well as encampment. So it will be a good opportunity for all of us on an issue which all really cares. So with that, I think so we should, if there's any objection to record as a unanimous vote, please raise your hand. All right. Alder Bennett, I believe you want to have a roll call?
Yes. Roll call. I'm sorry. My connection came out when we were doing this.
So for the clarity, the motion is to place on file. That's the motion.
Okay. Sorry. Thank you.
And you want a roll call, correct? Alder Carter?
Alder Carter wants a roll call. Right.
I was calling for a roll call.
Okay. Matlin?
Alder Abbas, President Abbas.
Yes.
Vice President Martin is excused. Alder Lemmer?
Yes.
Alder Bennett?
Yes.
Alder Wahelier?
Yes.
Alder Heck?
Aye.
Alder Harrington McKinney?
Would you come back to me, please?
Alder Carter?
No.
And Alder Harrington McKinney?
I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Well, we have 5 in favor, 1 opposed, and 2 either not voting or excused. So the motion passes.
Motion passes. With that, can we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
And there's a second. Thank you very much. Stefan, we gave you 5 minutes additional, so good luck. Take care all.
Thank you all.
Bye.